Hey, college wrestling fans, it's JT1Wrestle here, and we are going to talk about an extremely important topic today. We have this really special guest. Please welcome to the show three-time NCAA Division II All-American, as well as a three-time academic All-American from California Baptist University, Nolan Kistler.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And it's an honor to be on your show. This news has been real sudden, and I just wanted to talk to the wrestling community, give them some insight because I'm sure there's a lot of questions. But before I do that, I'll just kind of go into my background a little bit. I was born and raised here in Riverside, California. It's Riverside's located in Southern California. It's about an hour south of LA, an hour north of San Diego. And I wrestled at Martin Luther King High School. It's here in Riverside as well. And I chose to continue my college career at California Baptist University, which is also located here in Riverside, California. And just briefly about my time there, we were Division II while I was at California Baptist University, and during our last 2 years, we had two back-to-back third place finishes at the NCAA as a team. And each time we were in the running for a national title, we had a lot of success. And personally, I was able to All-American 3 times and was a national finalist my senior year. Um, Out of college, I went to law school. I got my law degree, and I'm in my fourth year of practice right now. I got a 1 year old son and a girl on the way here. So I just kind of wanted to give the context that I'm kind of starting my family, starting my career, and I get this news that California Baptist is dropping its wrestling program. And I just remember just the feeling of shock and despair and disbelief. And I kind of went into a little bit of a fight or flight mode, and I find myself helping with this coalition to oppose the university's decision. And I want to speak to the wrestling community because I believe that our sport is under attack. We saw it, recently with Cleveland State. We saw it with Fresno State, which is out here in California. We saw it with Old Dominion, Stanford in 2021. And we saw it even before that with the Olympic Committee's decision to cut wrestling in 2013. But, in those situations, or some of them, not all of them, but in some of them, the wrestling community fought back, and we were able to reverse some of those decisions. Most importantly, probably the Olympic Committee's decision to cut wrestling, one of the oldest sports that mankind knows. So I just kind of want to say that because I think I think most of the wrestling community can agree that we've had enough. I think that most people think that way, like enough is enough, and we're here to fight back. The sentiment that I've heard from folks out in the community, in the wrestling community, is that we're fed up with these college institutions targeting wrestling and actively trying to eliminate these programs. And I think there's a little bit, it's just in our blood as wrestlers that we fight and we care about the sport of wrestling and we don't give up. So there's a little bit of that. And there's also kind of an acknowledgement or an understanding in our community that wrestling breeds opportunity. It's a lifeline for opportunity. I think that that's something that separates our sport from many other sports. And of course, other sports bring opportunity, but there's something about wrestling where you just need a pair of shoes, you need your shorts, and you show up and you start practice, right? Like you don't need a helmet, you don't need certain like a cheer equipment or a lot of the other expensive items that you need for other sports. So there's just something about wrestling that I think that's in our blood, number one, to fight, and number two, we understand that we care about the next generation to come, like the next generation of wrestlers, that we want to ensure that they have the opportunities that we did when we were growing up in wrestling. And, I have some stories from just kids that I wrestled with at CBU, one being Mario Barrios. He was a first generation college student. His parents didn't go to college, his grandparents didn't go to college, and he was a buck 25. He's a 125 pounder, 5'2". So for him, he's expressed to me the only reason why he attended a 4 year university was because of the opportunities that the sport of wrestling brought. Being the size and weight, it's not like he was going to play basketball or football or have any success really in these other sports. And I think that again goes to the opportunity uniquely that wrestling brings. I have another friend. His name is Irvin Zayala. He's not only a first generation college student, but he's a first generation American. His parents uh, came from Guatemala, and he sought the American dream. Like he wanted to follow the American dream and assimilate, do his best to be successful, despite the fact that his parents could hardly speak the language. And um, he ended up wrestling at a local school, high school here, and he got into Cal CBU and had some success. Wasn't tremendously successful as a wrestler, but it got him that opportunity. It got him his foot in the door to higher education. And after he graduated, he started a business here in Riverside. And now he's got, I think, nearly 5 businesses across the state. So it's someone that goes from no education experience. His parents are hardly speaking the language. There's little to no opportunities to living the American dream because of the opportunities that wrestling, the sport of wrestling, provided him. Um, so there's a lot of stories like that that kind of motivate me to lead this coalition and to oppose the university's decision. And, there's Austin Klein's a good friend of mine. He became a doctor. He went to medical school. His parents didn't go to college. His grandparents didn't go to college. Um, and so there's stories like that where there is generational change that happens because of the opportunities that sports like wrestling bring. And I think that's what matters to me. It's not just about me. I was very happy and fortunate for the opportunities that CBU provided me. But I have a young son now. Like I think about him, where is he going to wrestle if that's what he chooses? CBU is the only Division I program in Southern California, which is crazy. Like the state of California, maybe not proportionally pound for pound, we're the most competitive with other states, but our numbers, like we have more numbers, or there's more high school wrestlers in the state of California, to my knowledge, than any other state. And we have 4 wrestling programs, potentially 3 now if this decision goes forward. So we are on a proportional level, like you compare Pennsylvania, who has 11 Division I programs, to our state where we're comparable on our numbers, and we only have now 3 Division I programs. That tells you that there's not enough opportunities for our wrestlers here in California. And I think that that's something that is important, but it's bigger than even wrestling. It's bigger than California. Um, we have the Olympics coming to Southern California this year. It's coming to Los Angeles. So there's a little bit of I think, a sentiment from the community that this timing couldn't be worse. Like you're cutting an Olympic sport at the same time when the Olympics are being brought to Southern California, and you're cutting the only Division I wrestling program in Southern California. It's just a little tone deaf, I think, and the community kind of sees it as that way. Um, and, especially given the direction that our sport is going with the RAF, our first professional kind of organization for wrestling, and the Olympics coming to Southern California this year. And I don't think it's anything else other than a direct attack on our sport. Um, and I think that it's going to require the wrestling community in its entirety. It can't just be folks in California. It can't just be folks on the East Coast, the Midwest. Like we need everybody. We need to fight this. Um, and again, it's bigger than just wrestling. Like this is the preservation of Olympic sports. I've spoken to some pretty high up officials like Mike Moyer. He's the executive director of the NCAA, and he's given me some stats. It's like we've lost 44 Olympic sports since the changes in the NCAA and NIL. Like the universities are choosing our mainstream sports, our basketball, our football, over our Olympic sports. And that's a threat because if we begin to cut our Olympic sports across the country, what happens is we are not you're cutting feeder programs that feed our next generation of Olympic athletes. And what that means is suddenly the United States of America becomes less competitive on an Olympic stage, on a global stage. So I think it's important to understand that, like when we talk to people, it's not just about wrestling. Like this is bigger. It's about the Olympic sports, and the preservation of our Olympic sports. So, I just we've really put together a strategic coalition because we care about these things. We see that this is so important. We have a coalition of over 100 supporters that includes alumni, like including 100 alumni. We have current athletes for at CBU and former athletes. We have coaches, high school coaches here in the community. We have big donors that are willing to contribute and they care about the sport of wrestling. We have teachers, first responders, business owners, the people in the community. We've seen a huge uprise, and that's been really motivating to see that. We've raised over $1 million in less than a month, which is absolutely crazy, I think, and especially because this decision surprised all of us. Like I think it's important that the public know that there were no signs, like we had no indication that our program was going to get cut. It gets cut, and then less than a month, we're raising over $1 million. So, the university kind of wanted to get us on our heels a little bit, but I think that we're showing that we're here to stay. We're here to fight back. Our district attorney in Riverside, he endorsed our movement, and he realizes that sports like wrestling, they build character. They require discipline. They provide mentorship. He's talked about, like in his line of work, he's prosecuted young men and women who haven't been exposed or have the opportunity to be exposed to character building activities like wrestling. And we know as wrestlers, it's accountability. Like I can't blame my teammate for my loss. I can't blame the ref. Yeah, I am the only one that is accountable for my loss. You got to make weight. Like you have to discipline yourself from a diet perspective, from your training, your exercise, your sleep. So, in a world that doesn't offer many programs that require accountability, structure, discipline, I think it's a big mistake to cut an organization that offers those things. And he talked about like several of those people he's prosecuted and unfortunately are incarcerated. They're not exposed to those character building activities like wrestling. And unfortunately, because of that, they end up in his courtroom. So there's a lot of effects, I think, that weren't really considered by the university. But, we've had a lot of movement. We got a lot of big names that have reached out for us. I just kind of want to list them because I want to give them their credit because it's been awesome to see the community come out and support. But like I said, our district attorney here in Riverside, Mike Hestrin, Mike Moyer, the executive director of the NCAA, he spent hours with me on the phone, just kind of arming me with some NCAA statistics so that when I talk to the university, I can push back against, their reasoning for cutting the program. Jason Borelli, he was the head coach of Stanford wrestling at the time they cut that program, and he's like Mike, he's spent hours with me over the phone, just encouraging me and saying, it's about hope. You got to keep pushing forward and stay optimistic. And then some other big names like Randy Couture, like in the MMA community. We had Chael Sonnen. He's got like 1 million followers on Instagram, and he's shouting us out and saying that we need to preserve Olympic sports. We got Jocko Willick. Like, I mean, everybody knows Jocko, and he's doesn't really have a background of wrestling to my understanding, but he cares about this and he's supporting us. And Coach Steve Garland, he's out of Virginia, Bill Zadok, Jaden Cox, Kennedy Blades, Zahid Valencia. The list goes on, but I don't probably can't name everybody, but even Anthony Robles, Muggsy, Caden Hensel, Mike Mal, he had me on his podcast, Brian Battisto, and the list goes on. And if I didn't mention you, I'm sorry. It's just hopefully you can post another video and I'll shout you out next time. But I wanted to just name these people because when you're the one in the seat and you get this news, And someone that is not an alumni of CBU like myself, or maybe they don't even have a background in wrestling, but they're dedicating their time to you and they're offering to help. And I can't say enough how grateful I am for these folks, for you, Stephen, like having me on here. This is it just brings so much encouragement. And at a time that it's tough, like this is a tough decision and it's not going to go away unless we really fight and get up everything we have. It's really encouraging to see people like that just helping. And there's people in the wrestling community that we've reached out to, and I don't want to name names, but they're kind of on the fence or they don't respond to us. And it's not that, I think that it's not that I want to call anybody out, but I think at the end of the day, it's important that the wrestling community rallies together. And this can't get done if some people are on the fence, if some people, see this as like just a California thing, or they see this as just a wrestling thing. This is bigger than California. This is bigger than wrestling, as for the reasons I've mentioned. And we need everybody to help because we see a trend that, if you're in a position where your university is healthy, it's thriving, it's doing well. Well, I'm here to tell you that that may not always be the case, unfortunately. I'm not saying that to be a fear monger or anything like that. This is just based on NCAA statistics. Since the NIL and the changes of NCAA, Olympic sports are under attack. There's no other way to put it. And so the only way that we stop that attack is we got to fight back. We got to do what wrestlers do best, and that's we fight to the third period. If it goes into overtime, we're getting that takedown. We're fighting every step of the way. So I ask those people that are kind of on the fence to reconsider and really think about just joining our effort. And, we want you on board. Um, and a final thing, just a couple announcements. We have our final home duel. It's against Cal State Bakersfield, and that's on February 21st at 5 p.m. And for those of you that are out of state, you can tune in online, show your support that way. But we are going to try to pack that gym as filled as we can. We don't want anybody to be able to, we want people to walk in and they don't have a place to sit because that's how packed this gym's going to get. And I think that's important to send a message to the university that wrestling has a huge impact on our community and our community cares about this sport. So that's coming up February 21st at 5 p.m. And then we actually have a city council meeting on February 24th where we're going to have voices in our community actually speak to our Riverside City Council and say why this decision is so detrimental to the future generations. These are going to be current parents of our current athletes themselves, alumni. Like we're just going to make our voice heard to our leaders in this community. And I think that will also send an important message to the university. But ultimately, Stephen, I can't thank you enough for having me. And, I know there's probably questions out there that you might have or the community might have, and I'm happy to answer anything.
Well, first and foremost, as many of us are, have a great enthusiasm and passion for this sport, what can someone from Iowa, from Michigan, from Ohio, from Pennsylvania, what can somebody do to help out the California Baptist Wrestling program?
Absolutely. A very simple thing, visit our website. It's cbUwrestling.com. And we have a place where you can pledge and donate a certain amount. I understand that not everybody's in a place to do that. It's not financially feasible for some people, but if you know someone that might be able to donate, you can send that link to them. And we have t-shirts. I'm wearing one of them where you can purchase a shirt and all the funds goes towards our movement. Then you can represent, wear these, and get the word out. But we know, I mean, the folks in the Midwest, they are probably the best fans of wrestling. They come out, they support, they care about this sport. And I think it's because they know more than anybody else why this sport matters in a world that doesn't offer many programs that hold people accountable, where you gotta be disciplined, and that build these character traits in our young men, our young women that foster their growth and allow them to be leaders in our community. I think that folks from the Midwest understand that, and that's something that's kind of sometimes misunderstood out where I am on the West Coast. We don't really, sometimes that's missed a little bit. But to answer your question, Stephen, like our website, just going there, pledging if you have the ability to, or sharing that, buying a t-shirt, and also just sharing our stuff on social media. Like right now, to keep it simple, there's two things that are our goal. One is raising funds, and number two is awareness. That's it. That's all we got to do. So what that means is, again, going to our website, pledging, and then number two, doing things like this podcast, or if you're not on a podcast, then share our social media posts, or the content that we're posting. And when Chael Sonnen talks about how important wrestling is to our community, just go ahead and share that to your story or share it to your friends, and so the word gets out, so that there's other people that are aware of this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I in a roundabout way, if you read my article that I posted on the discontinuation of California Baptist Wrestling, I was at Northwestern College in Iowa when John Petty took over the program, and he was only at Northwestern for one season. Got to know him fairly well, and suddenly, you find out he's not going to be there the next season. So where's he going? Oh, he's going to start a program in Southern California. Really? Where at? Riverside, California. Oh, well, that's kind of not too far from San Diego, not too far from Los Angeles. And I've done this program on my also run a little blog along with this podcast, and I have written about 486. And that number just seems unreal to me, but I counted them just the other day. I've written 486 articles on discontinued wrestling programs throughout the entire country. And I guess a few of them were in Canada too, but most of those 486 are just right here in the United States. And if you look at the state of California, 73 73 programs have been discontinued in the state of California. And one of the facts I like people to understand and know about is pretty much saying this: Southern California produces some really good high school wrestling. Are we talking Ohio and Pennsylvania? No. But are we talking some kids that have done very, very well, some kids that have done well NCAA Division One, Division Two, Division Three, NAIA, so on and so forth? Yes, we are. If you were to take every discontinued wrestling program that we have had in the state of California for Division 1 and suddenly wave a magic wand and suddenly all of these schools have reinstated programs, you would have enough college wrestling programs, NCAA Division 1, to have your own conference. And not only would you have your own conference, they'd have more teams than the Big 10, more teams than the Big 12, more teams than the EIWA and Ivy League put together. That's how many schools have been dropped in the state of California, which is one of the reasons why keeping the California Baptist wrestling program is so important to our community, because this is something that I don't think people from Iowa or people from Ohio or people from Pennsylvania understand. I live not in Iowa City, but I live very, very close to Iowa City. Okay, I live about 15-minute drive from Iowa City. I can go in any direction I want to go, north, east, south, west, and I have a college wrestling program every direction I want to go within an hour drive or less of where I am. Okay, in Ohio, same thing. Pennsylvania, same thing. Now we go out to California. You put yourself in Los Angeles, you got that close drive to Riverside. And other than that, you got to drive 2 hours up to Bakersfield. You got to drive 5.5 hours up to Stanford. It just there's nothing around you, but there's such good high school wrestling in that area. And these kids want to wrestle at home. They don't want to. I mean, some of them do. Some of them don't mind getting on a plane and flying out to Pennsylvania to wrestle for Penn State or for University of Pennsylvania or for University of Iowa. But some of these kids want to wrestle where mom and dad can come watch them, where grandma and grandpa can come watch them, where their high school coach can come watch them, where their old high school teammates can come watch them. This gives those kids an opportunity and a chance to be able to do that. And for people that don't understand this, having a Division One wrestling program in Southern California also helps our sport in terms of popularity. Los Angeles is tier one. Like, if you understand television, the way television and marketing works, Los Angeles is either tier one or tier two. I can't remember if it's right above New York or right below New York City. Having a wrestling program in an area of populace like that is going to help our sport grow in terms of gaining more fans, gaining more popularity. That's what I want people to understand too. I want
Yeah.
people to understand that California Baptist Wrestling, for all the reasons you mentioned, yes, that's great for the wrestling community, for the community in general, for helping build young people, young men and women, character skills, stuff like that. Absolutely. But the other major thing we've got to talk about here is how important it is to have a wrestling program in an area of such a high populace to be able to help our sport grow in terms of, more people at the national tournament, more people watching wrestling, so on and so forth. So that's another thing that I wanted to bring up too about why it's so important to have wrestling, in an area that's, I mean, Los Angeles, California, the second
Yeah,
most populous city in the entire country. We
absolutely.
need wrestling in an area like that. And that's a um uh topic that I wanted to bring to attention.
I think you're 100% right. And, when I heard the news of Cleveland State being dropped and Old Dominion, these are not my hometown places, but I care about the sport of wrestling and I understand that this affects the sport of wrestling on a broader scale. And this comes home a little bit, Stephen, because like my dad and my uncles, they were at UCLA. You talk about LA, like they were there when they had a wrestling program. Dave Schultz was there, Mark Schultz, like they had, if you look up their team that they had at UCLA, you would be shocked to see the talent that they had on that team. They cut that program. My dad and my uncles transferred to ASU. They wrestled there for a year, and they transferred to, lo and behold, the University of Iowa, wrestle for Dan Gable, and they had some success. Like my uncle Marty, he won. He's a three-time. I think he's a three-time finalist, and he won the national championships. So, you know, th I think that it comes. This has a place in my heart. Like we've seen California and the opportunities that the state has had, and being a metro center of media and the population size, and seeing these sports dwindle, like these programs dwindle, and the, it's very. I think you raise a great point that you know that's going to affect the sport of wrestling as a whole. And it already has. It's important to preserve programs like that, like you see it, UCLA, and especially here now we're talking the only Division I program in Southern California. Like it's not about, okay, we lost another, there's a couple more left. Like this is the only Division I program in Southern California. If you can think about that,
And
it's insane, so
further and
yeah,
furthermore, not only keep on saying the only Division One program in Southern California, I'd have to stop and think. We got East LA, um, there's a couple more in the area as well. I think Warner Pacific's another one I think we lost, but there are a few more programs. When you say the only NCAA Division One program, that sometimes I think it might give a misconception that, oh, we got California Community College programs there, we got NAIA programs there, we got D2 programs there, and it's like, no, no, we really don't. When you say only Division One, it's also one of the only college wrestling programs, period, in Southern
yeah,
California, which is another thing to go. Now, I don't like saying what I have to say next because I always enjoy being able to talk about these topics and be able to bring awareness and attention to them. But we are running out of time. And another thing I want to say too is when you talked earlier about head coach Jason Borelli, who is now at American University, and him telling you to stay optimistic and stay positive, I think that's one of the number one messages here. I think, unfortunately, a lot of these old timers, a lot of these people who have been around the sport for a long time have become disengaged. They have become very pessimistic and very negative
yeah,
because, they started watching wrestling back in the late 60s or the early 70s and they've just seen program after program after program discontinued. So, but I agree with you. It's important to stay optimistic. It's important to stay positive because, for example, you talked about UCLA. What was the real reason UCLA was dropped? Well, if you go and you really study it and really take your time and take a deep dive into UCLA, you find out Terry Donahue wanted to try to win a national championship in football, and
Mm.
he felt that um, the wrestling took up too much space, too much room. So he wanted to cut the wrestling program to give more space, resources, and money towards the football program. You know, back in those days, back in 1982 when that happened, 1982, 1983 season when that happened, we didn't have resources like the internet. We didn't have this wasn't exposed to where the whole community, everybody knew about it. It was done kind of behind closed doors where people didn't have answers to what was happening and why it was happening. Today, we find out California Baptist Wrestling is being eliminated. They give us some BS reason, for lack of a better term. And then 2 days later, the real reasons start coming out. Oh, they want to try to build a better basketball program and they want to try to make, their basketball program great, which is awesome. I don't have anything against basketball, neither do you, neither does anybody else, but it shouldn't come at the expense of wrestling and golf and the other sports that they ended up discontinuing. So I do want people to know that it's the fight is worth it. I mean, look at what we did at Stanford. Bernard Muir was on a mission. He wanted to get rid of us. He wanted to axe. He took down the axe on us. We fought back and said, no, we're not going to lose this program. We're going to keep Stanford wrestling. And look at where they're at now. They are
Yeah.
producing all Americans year in and year out. They're having a great program, a great team. The same thing is capable at California Baptist. Derek Moore, great guy, great coach. He's building up the program. This year alone, California Baptist, is it a guarantee? No. But they have three guys on their team that could be NCAA Division One qualifiers this year. That's the most during the D1 era that California Baptist has ever had. That's going to continue to keep growing and keep getting better. And I realize right now I'm kind of going on a rant, but this is something I'm very passionate about, as are you. So we are down to the last 60 seconds of the program. Um, Nolan, I want to thank you for being a part of JT1 Wrestle today. I really hope that my podcast and you speaking today helps get the ball rolling, get some more money out there, get some more awareness out there, and come the start of the 2026 2027 season, I'm looking forward to writing about California Baptist wrestlers getting ready to fight in the next season, man, because this is a program I think we can save. So I want to thank you again, give you one last word. You got about 30 seconds, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here. It's an honor. And like, I just, you are absolutely right. There is a precedent that's set. If we don't push back, if we don't make our voices heard, there's a precedent that universities believe that they can cut college sports, wrestling, and that there's no repercussions of that. That's a dangerous precedent. So visit our website. Please contribute, support in any way you can. Thank you.